this is part 1 of every book an instructional coach should read. So it's summer. One of the things that I love to do is to catch up on reading and just get my brain ready for the next school year. So the first book that I'm going to share with you is actually not really an instructional coaching book, but more of a leadership book. So this book I have read every summer for the last 3 years. And every time I read it, I get a new nugget of information out of it, and it's just amazing. So the first book that I would recommend every instructional coach, leader, really anybody who's in the role of supporting people is this book. So this is Brene Brown's Dare to Lead book. And one of the things that I love about this book is that it also comes with, well, it doesn't come with it, you gotta get it, but they have a free note-taking guide to go along with it, which is really awesome because I like to take notes and translate how I would use this in my instructional coaching. Okay, so as you can see, I have tabbed this book to no end. I have highlighted, written all in it in different colors. Every time I read it, I highlight it in something different. And so it's just an amazing book. So this book is about being a courageous leader and just different things that we should do if we're going to transform our environment and our culture as we lead. So one of the things that I love about this book is that she spends a lot of time talking about how supporting people and building people up has nothing to do with your title or the stage of your organization that you're in. It all has to do with building people up and recognizing their potential. And so I think that a lot of times as leaders or instructional coaches, sometimes that title can get to people's heads and we forget that we're actually trying to build people's capacity and build them up as teachers and make them into leaders themselves. A lot of what Brene talks about in this book is vulnerability. And I think sometimes as a leader or an instructional coach, we specifically think that we cannot be vulnerable, that we have to put up this mask and this shield and pretend like we don't have feelings or let people into our feelings because we have this role. And so one of my favorite quotes from her book is, "Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome." And I think so many times just showing up and continuing to do what we do and have the conversations means that we are vulnerable, and we have to be vulnerable in order to see growth. Another aspect that she talks about in her book is this quote, and I literally have it on my wall. It says, "Clear is kind, unclear is unkind." And sometimes as coaches or leaders, we talk around what we really need to say because we're scared that it is unkind or the fear of what somebody will think about it. And so another part of her book that I just really love is when she talks about this. So I'm going to read you a little bit about what she says about that. It says, "Not getting clear with a colleague about your expectations because it feels too hard, yet holding them accountable or blaming them for not delivering is unkind." And as a coach, I, in my first year, found myself in this situation. And so, I felt like I didn't want to overtalk or I didn't want to oversay because I didn't want people to think that I was saying too much. But then when it came to it, I was holding these expectations that nobody knew. And so in the end, it was really being unkind to them when if I would have just been clear and upfront from the beginning, things could have turned out a lot differently. Another thing that Brene stands on, and in all the interviews that I've watched with her, she always shares this quote by Theodore Roosevelt, and it's in this book. It says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. And I just love this quote, and I'm sure there's so many perspectives on what this quote means or different ways to analyze it. But to me, this means that as coaches and as leaders, we have got to be in the arena. We have to be the ones who are getting our hands dirty as we would ask our teachers to do. And so I love that this whole book is about this. And there are just so many tools in this book on conversations and things to use in your PLCs. It is just literally one of my favorite books. So if you have never read Dare to Lead, that would be my very first book as a coach to ever read. And think about the connections you can make to leading teachers and leading a PLC in the examples that Brene gives.